Welcome back to the Budding Author Podcast with me, Simon Ward. Today we're talking to a bit of a specialist on the life and the world of cyberpunk. So we welcome Anna Mocikat. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Simon. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So first and foremost, tell me, we have sci-fi genres, futuristic stuff. Cyberpunk, what exactly is cyberpunk? Tell me what it is, what it includes, what it doesn't include.
So cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction. As you said yourself, it is a relative niche. It is much smaller than people would think compared to other branches of science fiction, like, I don't know, space opera or something like that. So cyberpunk is relatively small and therefore also relatively geeky. Cyberpunk has been introduced in the late 80s and then started blooming in the 90s, then died a little bit off for a while, and then had a huge comeback with the game Cyberpunk 2077. And so that gave our genre a huge boost, but it still is a niche. Cyberpunk, what makes it different compared to other science fiction, it is usually in a relatively close future, but not necessarily. It is usually in an urban area like the mega cities. Yeah. And very often there is like basically a fight between the mega corporations and the people who are standing up against them, like hackers or stuff like that. So very typical tropes would be like mega corporations, hackers, big cities, and of course AI, cyborgs. Transhumanism is a very important part. And then the famous high-tech, low-life, which is a famous line people associate with cyberpunk. So yeah, that's basically all of it. But the genre is quite diverse. So there are very very different books in the genre, especially that came out over the last couple of years. So the genre has evolved quite a bit compared to what it was in the 80s and 90s.
Got you. I think when you're talking about that, I think one of my books, perhaps I talk about it as a sci-fi romance, but I think it probably is cyberpunk for what you're saying. It's about a woman who struggles in the dating world and ultimately falls in love with a sex robot.
Oh yeah, well, that's a very realistic scenario. We're going straight into that, right?
It was my first book, Finding Love in 2045. So I think drops into cyberpunk.
Definitely drops into cyberpunk. So the human robot, human AI relationships are definitely a very important factor for cyberpunk literature. And by the way, I also have a similar. I wrote a short story about that topic. There is a short story that has been published by me. And it's also like a woman who falls in love with a sex robot, but the story doesn't really end the way you would expect. So
okay. Well, yes. I think for mine, it's sort of her best friend was the house robot, and then sort of things evolved, and there's lots of twists and turns, but don't want to give it away too much for people that are sort of not ready yet. And it's connected with sort of a sci-fi thriller, which is sort of more dystopian. Should cyberpunk be more dystopian future?
It is usually a dystopian future, but not necessarily. So there cyberpunk works. Very famous example of that is Ghost in a Shell, which is one of the most important cyberpunk works in history. And Ghost in a Shell is not a dystopia. Ghost in a Shell is more like the very technologically advanced society where like humans and machines blend into each other, and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a dystopia, it's more like a futuristic version of our world. And well, yeah, we might argue about it if it's actually a good future, if we would like to live like that or not, but it's not really told as a dystopian story. So
Yeah.
there are very different kinds, but most cyberpunk works are dystopian, yes.
But it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to
No.
be. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
A bit like Fifth Element, the film Fifth Element, perhaps.
Yeah, Fifth Element basically blends cyberpunk with a space opera. That's also something what I do in my Spacepunk series. That's also a blend of cyberpunk and space opera, because usually cyberpunk is in a urban setting on Earth, but sometimes why not take it into space? It works in space as well as it does on Earth.
Yeah, I think I veer away from the space side of things and like to keep it Earth based. I think that's where I'm comfortable on Earth. I think that's probably it. So with all the transhumanism and brain computational interfaces and that sort of thing, how do you structure your stories? Because a lot of this is pretty much happening now, isn't it?
You mean a lot of this is already happening, or
A lot of the technologies we're talking about in cyberpunk themes, we're getting quite close to them already, aren't we?
Yes.
So how do you approach that when you're writing a novel for cyberpunk? Where do you get your ideas from?
Well, some people say that cyberpunk has become obsolete because basically we live in a cyberpunk world, and I strongly disagree with that because it is science fiction. So the job of an science fiction author is to create a future world based on our world. So the classic cyberpunk stories, which have been written in the 80s and 90s, were definitely children of the 80s and 90s. They had a lot of 80s vibe in them. A lot of this neon is coming from there, and then this focus on Japan and so on. That's very, very 80s and 90s, and other genre elements, like, I don't know, gangsters on motorcycles and that kind of stuff. Very, very, very 80s. So Neuromancer and all those works from back then, they're inspired by the period they have been written in. So right now, what we have to do is we have to take in my opinion at least, we have to take our world and create a version of it in the future. So we have a lot of technology that cyberpunk's authors in the 80s and 90s were writing about. We already have that. So our job is now to basically advance it further, and also advance it further, the thought where this will lead for humans. Because in the end, of course, technology is very important, but the impact of technology on human life, human psychology, all of this is super important for the genre, and that's what we should do. And personally, that's what I do. I basically take our today's world and spin it further into the future. And I hate nothing more, I can tell you that. I hate nothing more than when I read something in the news and see, oh crap, I wrote about that 10 years ago. I hate it when things I have come up with become reality, because obviously I don't want to live in the worlds I create.
Well, I think a lot of it's happening. I think for my research for Finding Love in 2045, I was looking at sort of investment magazines at the time, looking at futuristic projects where things. So I was thinking these are things that could be happening in the future. So and one of the concerns I had when I was writing the novel was the things would start to happen before I'd published it. And I think that's probably a fear of yours as well, isn't it?
No, not really, because the stuff I really take today's okay. A lot of technology I write about we already have, but that's also okay, you know. So, for example, everything that is like internet and that kind of thing, it won't go away. It will still be there in 50 years or 100 years. So this is something a lot of authors don't have in their books, like because the classics from the 80s and 90s, they didn't really have the internet or social media, for example.
No.
It didn't exist. And so a lot of authors nowadays create worlds that are similar to those of the past. Whereas I think, okay, of course, there will be still social media. And of course, there will be even more like online dating. And there will be, yeah, of course, the internet and all of this we have today. But then you have to spin it further. And that's what I do. And so like the video gaming they have, the virtual worlds they have, and so on, we are far away from achieving that. We already have VR,
Yeah.
but this is like still, you know, it's baby stage. But eventually we will get there for sure.
Do you think there will come a time? Because I think because of the mega corporations and the conflict that you mentioned there, people perhaps fighting against that. I think there's a little bit of that now, I think, isn't there?
I'm not sure. So I think that the mega corporations, I mean, who are them? Who are those mega corporations? You know, who are those people? They exist already, yes.
Yeah.
But they are not the ones people are fighting because they already control the media and the narrative. So, you know, people who are so anti and who think they are the rebels, they are basically doing the work of those people. So we have the WEF, of course, and those are the really bad guys. Those are the villains from Cyberpunk books, you know.
Yeah.
Those are the real life villains. So we have those guys and everybody affiliated with them. And then big companies like Google and so on, who really define human thinking and define the narratives and can fake everything they want, and people won't know it. So we have that already. The difference is that we don't have those people fighting it, because those people who supposedly should be fighting it are fighting for them because they made them believe that they are the good guys. You know, so this is so we have a slightly different situation than what the authors of the 90s and 80s and 90s thought we would have. And for me, that's always very, very interesting to observe, like when you see discussions on social media and so on, how people think and how they're influenced.
Is there a time, you think, looking forward, that people will step away from social media and step away from technology, or is that, do you think, not possible now?
I don't think so. I think it will. So that would be as if you would have asked people in the 80s, will people eventually stop using the phone and go back to writing letters? So that's a similar thing. I don't think that the technology we have now will go away. Of course, there are trends, stuff is coming and going, but certain things are here to stay. And for example, I think VR is definitely something that is here to stay, and that will only grow much, much bigger. That will be like a billion business that is coming up. And of course, we have robots and AI and all of that. I mean, this was what we have now basically is what Asimov was writing about. We're super close to that. Very, very close to that. We will live with that. We will have to figure out how to do it.
Now, what we're going to get to next is I have a little quiz, a little challenge for you. I'm going to give you a line, and you need to finish the line. Now, what we normally do is we roll the dice to see what genre I'm going to give you. But on this occasion, I'm going to be very nice to you, and I'm going to give you the Cyberpunk genre.
Oh, okay, good. That's.
I'm being very kind. I'm not normally this kind.
Nice to me.
I'm not normally this kind to my guests. I should give you about a minute to extend the line. And whilst you're doing that, I should just keep people occupied and read a little bit of my book. Finding Love in 2045. You tell me what page to read, and I'll start reading on that page.
Well, let's start with page 45, and I probably should mute you, right? So I can focus on the line you're giving me. Or
yes, you can do. We'll give you about a minute. If you just put your hand up when you're ready.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to mute you on. No, you need to mute yourself. Okay. No, you can't mute yourself.
I will mute. I think you just carry on and just you'll be okay, I think.
Okay, so I will just try to focus while you read. Okay, so you start reading. What line would you like me to finish?
Jack and Jill went up the hill, and you finish the line. Jack and Jill went up the hill. Okay, that's your line. I'll leave you with that. I'll just have a little read of this.
It's supposed to be just one sentence, right?
Just you can have an extended sentence if that works for you. Just in the cyberpunk genre.
Jack and Jill went up the hill. Okay.
Okay. So we're reading from chapter 8, from Finding Love in 2045. As the storm gathered pace, Kat and Mia arrived at Giangalini's with rain bouncing off the ground. The smart taxi stopped under the canopy and allowed them to stay dry as they strolled in. The restaurant was typical of modern times and appeared far from busy. A polite bot welcomed them and invited them into the relaxation area to wait for the remaining guests. The bot offered to take Mia's jacket, but she declined. They settled on the tanned leather sofas and looked through the chestnut-tinted safety windows which framed the storm. The storm pulled and pushed at the bushes around the sparsely populated parking area. They were glad to be inside.
Okay.
Okay, you good?
I'm good, yes.
Right then, so Jack and Jill went up the hill.
Jack and Jill went up the hill, and the hill exploded in a million pixels. Jack and Jill fell from the hill into a black grid.
A black grid.
Mm.
Ooh. That's almost I think my Twitter challenge has got it in the horror genre, so that's pretty similar to the horror genre, I think. Anna, that has been excellent. Just tell us a little bit about your books, the Spacepunks series and Behind Blue Eyes. If you just tell us a little bit about those.
So both are basically cyberpunk stories. However, Behind Blue Eyes, which is like my main series, it has almost six books. The sixth book is coming out this year. So this is more like a classic cyberpunk story in the tradition of Ghost in a Shell. So it's very much about cyborgs and the entire transhumanism thing, and very, very action driven, and has super cool killer cyborgs. And then there is Spacepunks, which is when I designed Spacepunks, I wanted to tell something like Cyberpunk 2077 in space. So it's very gritty, and it has like all the cyberpunk elements. Of course, it has cyborgs because cyborgs are my thing, but it also has spaceships and space battles, and it even has a cyborg dog, and so this is more like the fun story. It's really like a little bit maybe like Firefly, Cyberpunk 2077 in space. It's Spacepunks. And Behind Blue Eyes is a little bit more serious and more like a classic cyberpunk, like Ghost in a Shell. I have a couple other series, but those two are probably the most popular ones.
Most suitable for those and the most popular. Very good. So as far as movies are concerned, Alita Battle Angel you probably love.
Yes, for sure. That was a very good movie. And of course, there is Blade Runner, the old one, and Blade Runner 2049, and a couple other movies. So my personal favorite is, of course, Ghost in a Shell, the anime from '95. But I also like the live action version that came out a couple of years ago. So many people hated it, but I really enjoyed it. So yeah,
What's that? Is it Lucy? Am I thinking of? Do you know the Lucy film?
Lucy, that was by Luc Besson, wasn't it? Was
I think so.
with
Where
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson. That's it. Do you remember that one?
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
good.
but I don't. I mean, I do, but it has been a while I saw it. I think it could be Cyberpunk, but I can't tell for sure.
Yeah, Ex Machina is another one.
Oh yeah, that's a very good one. That's
Yeah,
very
I
good.
like that as well.
Yeah, that's a very good one with yeah, basically artificial intelligence, robots. I mean, it's should be very, very much down your alley, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's perfectly in my line. There was a BBC series called Humans.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know
that.
if you've seen, I don't know if you've seen that.
Mhm.
That was quite an inspiration for me, to be honest with that. And my main character is Mia, which just happens to be the same name as a key character in Humans. So yeah, I was influenced by that a little bit, I think.
It was a very good show. Very good show.
Yeah, very good show. Anna, this has been fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and wish you all the best in your writing. We'll put some links in the description so people can check out your stuff, and some links for mine will be in there as well, as you might guess. But what I need people to do is subscribe and comment on the show. That's what I really want people to do. Sort of help spread the word for tips and advice for authors.
You heard it, people. Subscribe to the show.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Anna.
you very much, Simon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.